Let me mention from the get-go here, guys, I'll be talking about the compressor operation with respect to evaporator temperatures in this wee video. And I'm not talking about the protection modes where you have a low pressure cutout in order to protect the system if you have a drop in refrigerant pressure in a failure case scenario, or a failure scenario that you have excessively high pressures. I'm only talking about normal operation. So I'm sitting in my SX4 here, guys. It's the early evening, and temperature, ambient temperature, outside temperature is just starting to drop now. It's 22 degrees, actually a lovely night. I thought some of you guys might be actually interested in seeing the SX4, like many other vehicles, I'm sure, has a control strategy in order to operate the clutch and cycle the clutch. It's a TXV system, of course, so it is a cycling clutch. Not like some of the newer designs that are variable displacement compressors, of course, right? Or perhaps no clutch on them at all. In any case, I thought this was kind of interesting here. You can see on my scan tool, I actually have 3 parameters up. The cabin temperature, so this is the indoor temperature. It was sitting in the sunlight, so this car was absolutely baking for quite some time. I've got the evaporator temperature and the refrigerant pressure itself. It's in kilopascals, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. Yeah, I know. 728 is around 100 psi, give or take a wee bit, right? So you can actually see the evaporator temperature here. There's a sensor that sits in the evaporator, and this is the high side pressure. So if you watch the, I've got it on, it's graphing at the moment, as you can see. So there's an anti-ice strategy that keeps the evaporator from actually frosting up. Once the evaporator actually hits 1.5 degrees Celsius, sorry, it's no Fahrenheit for the guys who are watching this that use Fahrenheit. There's lots of different units here, sorry. Once it hits 1.5 degrees Celsius, just above freezing at 0 degrees, of course, it does make sense that the compressor would cut out, right? The refrigerant pressure, so let's just watch it. So there, it's cut out, the refrigerant pressure is dropping. Listen. About 4 degrees there, I could hear the clutch actually kick back in which case the refrigerant pressure will come back up. Evaporator temperature will drop back down, and again we hit that target, the cutout threshold of 1.5. And it's 1.5 cut out, about 4 degrees cut in, so the temperature for cut out and cut in are not the same. So it begs the question, well, how often should this cycle? Well, that's a complicated question, right? That would have to do with the ambient temperature, of course, the cabin temperature, even the relative humidity is going to load the system, of course, to a greater or lesser degree depending on the amount of humidity. But the blower speed, and actually I'm in manual right now, it's not in auto, is going to have a tremendous impact on just how quickly the compressor will cycle in any given conditions, right? So in these given conditions that we have now, you can see it cycling there. Let me turn up the blower speed. I won't turn it too high because then you'll struggle to hear me. But you'll see that the cycles are actually going to slow down significantly. We're not going to have that short of a wave anymore. The crest and the fall of the wave is going to take a much longer period. And that's because there's more load on the evaporator, right? You can see the temperature changing there. So the compressor's cut back in, the pressure will climb. And watch the temperature on the evaporator. It'll drop. It's dropping towards the threshold. It just hit the cutout, and then the pressure will drop. So let me turn up the blower speed a bit more, just to make the point. You might struggle to hear me, but it'll take even longer now because I'm effectively loading the system, right? There's more demand on the system here, and the waves will take longer. In fact, at certain conditions, of course, you may never hit the 1.5 cutout, in which case the compressor clutch won't cut out at all. You can see it's taking much longer. We're at 2.5 degrees there. And it's going to take considerably longer to actually hit the cutout here. It's just a half a degree away from cutout. And again, this is all in the interest of keeping the evaporator frost free, right? Because of course the moisture from the humid air hitting the face of the evaporator, it will condense, water droplets will form, and if the evaporator gets below the freezing threshold, of course 0 degrees, it will start to form frost and would ultimately block the airflow. This is air conditioning. The whole point is to have ventilation and, you know, conditioned air and dehumidified. It would be counterproductive, obviously, you have frost on the face of the evaporator. So all this to show, guys, that there is no set answer. How often should this actually cycle? It all depends on the conditions, the heat load basically that prevails on the system. Got it down to minimum fan speed now, so it will cycle really quickly now because there's less demand on the system. It's a wee bit counterintuitive. Most people, or at least some people, think that when you turn the blower speed up, the duct temperature should get lower, right? That's not the case. Because you're putting a higher demand on the system, typically the duct temperature will increase. So if you're a fan of very low duct temperatures, keep your fan speed low. Now ultimately the cooling, the overall cooling effect is going to be dropped because of the volume of air that's coming in the cabin, of course, but the duct temperature will stay nice and cool. So once you reach your target temperature in the cabin that you're interested in, if you like low discharge temperatures, which I do, I turned the blower speed down not the minimum setting, but perhaps just a few notches off minimum. So you can see that the system will actually cycle much quicker now. Again, there we're just coming above, just approaching the cut-in threshold at 4 degrees. There's the cut-in, the pressure there. You can see the notch right there where the pressure actually starts to climb, and we've reached the cut-out. Refrigerant pressure will drop, evaporator temperature will climb again, and the whole cycle of course repeats. But the point is the period or the frequency, the time between cut in and cut out of the clutch on your compressor in the SX4, again I'm talking about the SX4, many cars are very similar but some are quite different, will vary depending on the conditions that you're operating in and the amount of demand that you're asking or the amount of load that you're putting on the system, guys, right? So there's no easy answer. How often should the clutch cycle in and out? Well, that will depend on how you're operating it and in what conditions, right? That's it, boys. Cheers.